From the darkest reaches of space to the deepest corners of your mind. Welcome to From the Void.
Welcome back to From the Void. I'm John Williamson, and this is part 2 of my conversation with researcher, producer, and television host Melissa Tittl. In part 1, we covered her journey into the world of UFO investigation and her work behind some of the most iconic paranormal and extraterrestrial TV series of our time. In this episode, we go further into the rabbit hole. Melissa opens up about theories of ancient contact, government secrecy, and the deeper metaphysical questions that come with the possibility that we're not alone, and maybe never were. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, I recommend you go back and start there. Otherwise, let's head deeper into the void.
But now we've kind of confirmed that whatever happened to this guy, whether it was terrestrial, extraterrestrial, something definitely happened that night. And so I think if we would have had more time, I actually would like to spend more time with him and maybe take him to a hypnotherapist and get deeper into what happened. But his face was priceless. He literally went back into PTSD.
Sounds like a future show to me.
Yeah, right?
You got to follow up on that. That would be fascinating. What's interesting too is I think the thing that you hit on is something that I've noticed also in a lot of these witnesses who have very reluctantly come forward is there is a very visceral response that they have. And I'm thinking of like some of the guys who were involved in the Tic Tac video where their careers, went down the tubes after coming out about this stuff. And they are physically like crying on camera, like they are very emotionally moved by the thing that happened to them. And I think back to some of the guys on the crew surrounding the Travis Walton incident who are still, 50, 60, whatever years later, who are still like emotional about this thing that they witnessed. They thought this guy was dead, And so it's interesting to me, like, because it also makes me think of Dr. John Mack and some of the research that he did, where initially he was like, oh, this is all bogus, because for those who don't know, he was I believe a Harvard psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, who started to work with people who had claimed to have been abducted. And this is way back, and was like, well, we'll figure it out. It's probably nothing or whatever. And I'll start looking into some of these cases and we'll come to, we'll figure out, we'll get to the bottom of it, and it won't have anything to do with aliens. And he came away with completely the opposite feeling. He said, I don't think he ever quite said, I think it's aliens, but he certainly came to the conclusion that whatever these people experienced, they had a very real experience. And that was sort of his takeaway. And you're like, so I see that. I see that with a lot of these people who have come forward with these experiences that, it just lends to the credibility, I think.
I think so too. I do too. The Travis case is, I think about that case a lot, actually. I mean, it's been analyzed to death, so I don't really want to get into all those pieces, but what an experience he's just such a very low-key guy. Like, when you meet him, he's very, God, wow. It's just, I don't even know what to say. What an experience.
And with somebody with such a huge story, like, he's not a guy who is out there doing every single radio show or podcast or whatever. I mean, he's very selective about it. He's very private, it seems. Similar with like Bob Lazar, who is another interesting one. I would love your take on that one too, because I think early on, obviously, he came out, was revealed, I guess, in the 1980s, claiming to have worked at Area 51 and this program that reverse engineered recovered craft. And I think it was very easy back then to dismiss most of it. And he gave a lot of very interesting detail, though, which I think has served him well in the years since then, because things like the hand scanner that he talked about, like even getting onto the base that we knew nothing about and thought, well, it's just a made up detail, have now been confirmed in the years since then. And so like more and more pieces of his story have been confirmed. And you're like, okay, now this is interesting. So maybe this guy isn't completely full of shit. Like,
Yeah.
and if he's not, oh my gosh, like what implications does that have? You know?
That's true. And then, why is he still alive?
Yeah, that's a good question. And still being rated to this day,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Bob Lazar, I think he definitely look, we have human opinions, and then there's lots of cool individual little facts and stuff to back up our human opinions. But I think that he definitely saw some things and he experienced some things, but there's got to be a level where they allowed him to come out with that and not make him disappear. I mean,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a level of that they either some of it did not happen, or they allowed him to talk about it in such a crazy way that no one would believe him. Right? There's two aspects to.
Let's follow that thread, because I think one of the questions I had for you is actually around two of the things I think cause difficulties in the sort of UAP field today. And those two things are one, the disinformation campaigns that are surely out there that tend to muddy the waters. And so, like, what's fact, what's fiction? Is it somewhere in between, or or what? And then I think the other thing that's sort of new to this generation is the rise of AI technology, and the fact that, like, I can't trust anything I see on the internet anymore. I'm like, this is probably fake. I have no idea. But it muddies the water so much that it's really hard to differentiate between a legitimate video or photograph and something that was completely, made up.
Yeah, now we're definitely. I mean, we were talking about a fake alien invasion like 10 years ago, right? But now that's like so easy. That this is what I tell people. I mean, someone just sent me a video the other day about, YouTuber talking about this is what we mean by disclosure. It's about the government, and I'm like, I get that, but I don't think it would matter right now. Your neighbor who's not a believer and they have all this video stuff happening, they're going to think somebody just made it up. I mean, unless we're really at that stage right now. So it is about consciousness. Disclosure is about consciousness. It's also about controlling your consciousness. And this to me is the big concern about being interested in what else is out there. Are we alone? Is such an interesting and important question to ask. But we are so hungry for the truth that we get bombarded by people giving us false information, and we just eat it up because we're so hungry for the truth. And that is a dangerous place to be, because we're not going to find the truth when we just want someone to feed our imagination. It's a hard place to be, but just to want people to do things because you want the truth, because it's going to make you sleep at night, is not actually going to solve the bigger issue. What is out there? Why is it coming here? How are we connected to it? Because we just really want the quote unquote truth. So I know that I take a very, again, with the Hudson Valley, my like minerals and stuff, like just not as sexy. It would be sexier if I was just fighting and that it's this person's problem and the government and all of that. But what if it's something so much bigger that the government can't even control? Do they know more than we do? Yes, they probably do. But I'm saying, like, what if whatever it is that's interacting with us is so big that no one on this planet has control of it? The only thing that we have control of is our free will and our consciousness, which is constantly bombarded by different propaganda, different ideas of where we're supposed to do or where we're supposed to put our attention and what we're supposed to believe. So I just feel that this topic is so important, not only for the people that have experienced horrific things and positive things with these extraterrestrial interdimensional beings, UAPs, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, but also what defines humanity. I mean, I think what people are overlooking, because it's just so much more fun to look at something else, is that if we actually can define what the others are, then we can define humanity. And that is just as important.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it does really feel as if the government is frantically just trying to control the narrative at this point. But it feels like they're slowly losing control of that. And I don't know if I love your thoughts on this too. I don't know if that's the advancement in technology, and now we're all carrying like 4K video cameras in our pockets, and the fact, the general public has access to technology that is light years beyond what scientists had in their hands, even 10, 15 years ago. And now the government, is kind of in a position where they're sort of forced to at least partially admit that, oh yeah, we know there's something going on. And so maybe this is a good segue into the latest thing of news as of this week. And I'd love your thoughts on it. This sort of release of information around this secret government project. I think it was spearheaded by the Pentagon. I don't profess to know a ton about it, but Immaculate Constellation.
I wish you could see my face right now, but this is just audio.
Both good and bad.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty. There's always secret government programs.
Yeah.
There have been secret government programs for many years. And all of us in this space, if you're listening, you know that. In 2020, there was a big drop of information that was like, yeah, we know, and we're sorry, but here's some stuff, and we confirm it's real, and then the train started going. And now we have immaculate, we have a word that is very religious.
Oh, yeah.
And so what are we saying here? What are we putting into the minds of people that are obsessed with this world? We are tapping into a religious understanding, and we are treating this as a religious experience. Okay, I guess you could argue maybe it is, because what is God? What's anything that's not human, right? It's we used to say it in Ancient Aliens all the time. We call, everybody an alien.
Yeah.
No matter what religion it was. Yep. Alien. Just check that off the box. So you have this zeitgeist that's been created around what's not human to be God. And I would argue that this is a very dangerous position. And I know that I'm touching on the concept of the words they're using, but they're very important because they're getting into the heart of people wanting to feel that they have a connection to this God, this something that's bigger than religion, but it's the same a little bit. So I'm just waiting for all the pieces to fall before I can actually give my full opinion. But my first intuition was, oh, we're going for the religious connection.
Yeah. It felt very intentional, right?
Yeah, it felt very intentional. And sometimes when I just had a movie come out and we repurposed it and put it out. And it was about the Matrix and like a code I had discovered and all this kind with the universe and how it interacts with us and stuff like that. It wasn't really about aliens, but it really had to do about this bigger picture, right? This quantum physics is proving it. The Bible's proving it, right? Ancient civilizations, like all this stuff, like it's all like aligning to the same thing, meaning the web of which we live in. Mm-hmm. And literally all of my calls were on Jesus and
really?
in Christianity and how, because I brought up the Bible because it has some amazing information that ties back into this bigger picture. And I brought up other ancient texts and other alignments and genetic material and all this kind of stuff. Because I feel that it touches on something that's beyond us that is so important to us. And I feel like we just need to be careful with aligning ourselves with that because we are not lesser beings of that which is in another dimension. We are blind to what our purpose is. So we can't, I just get that the idea of praising something that's not human, it could be dangerous. That's all I want to say. It'd be really amazing. Actually, really positive. There's tons of positive experiences with aliens. I never want to say it's negative. I'm just saying, use discernment.
Well, and that's funny. I did not expect you to go there, but that's such an interesting take that I would not have thought of. Like, of course, when I first heard the the name of the project, I thought, cute. I see what you did there, but but like I would not have connected it. And so now you have me thinking along the lines of sort of this theory of slow leak disclosure, where it's all slowly being leaked. We're slowly being acclimated because as a general public, we can't handle the full truth. You can't turn the fire hose all the way on because we'll freak out. And specifically, the thing that always gets brought up, it's been brought up since I was a kid, is the main reason for that is because our sense of our place in the world and our reality would crumble, because then, we're not the only beings that exist in this universe, and it always comes back to religion. And so it would be interesting if this was an intentional campaign, again, along the lines of this sort of slow dissemination of information and slowly just sort of getting us acclimated, that they would go the religion angle. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with anybody's beliefs on this call. And I think in points of chaos, we do look to ancient texts or our go-tos on how to behave as humans and how to get through the chaos. But the chaos is happening because nothing makes sense anymore. So instead of reverting back to something that we think is solid, we need to really say, okay, the Bible, the other ancient texts that have been written are all about how we as humans can live a life with less suffering, right? I mean, I don't want to get too far off in this path because I know we're talking about aliens and I don't want to bore anybody, but this is an important part. This is really, I think, important part of this phenomenon is to not try to revert back to an old belief system. Look at everything as a contribution to something new. And that would, I think, allow us eventually, my biggest push with all of this is if we understand what it is or they are, all of the things, if we really just start to understand it, it will come into our awareness and it won't be scary and it won't necessarily be a good thing, right? We'll be aware and we will feel empowered. But right now we're just going back to the cave and the drawings and the things. And so, yeah, I think let's just say the government is doing a slow disclosure and they know this. And they know, especially in America, if they go the Christianity route and they evoke that feeling that they're going to have a calmer presence when XYZ happens, whatever that is. We're living in probability world right here. I'm just making stuff up for the sake of conversation.
We'll speculate. That's fine.
Yeah, we're speculating. They'll have a better response than if they come out and they call it Dragon Fire Project number 1. Do you know what I mean? Like none of that is going to make anybody feel warm and fuzzy. They're like, oh yeah, because they're totally coming here to hurt us. So
right.
Whatever their motive is, I just think we really need to stay on the sidelines and let it come to fruition. They also, I know I have weird connections with things, but when they first published in the New York Times in 2020, the big drop, right?
Yep. And
they said, we have 144 cases that we cannot identify, that we can't.
That's it?
Yeah. We have 144 cases and that we don't necessarily know what it is, and then later they said, well, they're mostly human, but they came out with this number. Now, this number is sacred. This number is sacred. I mean, I hate to go back to Christianity, but we'll go back to the Bible. We'll go back to the Vedic texts. We can go back to the ancient Egyptians, the Sumerians. This is a sacred number. Now, when I read that, I'm like, how ironic that we have 144 cases. I'm like, are they just waiting for someone to put together all the little pieces?
Yes, I think they are.
They're so random. That was just so random to me that, okay, this is a sacred number. This is also, 12 times 12, the probability of space-time, right? Like 12 being I don't want to get too nerdy, but 12 being the sacred geometry shape of a dodecahedron and quantum physics together, that's how you traverse space-time, 144. And then you have Revelations, 145. I mean, like, look, it's just so ironic that they use that number to say these are the cases that we can't figure out.
Yeah. We're like, oh, okay, interesting. It is funny though. Like I think of, not to bring up, and I won't, politics, but it does kind of feel like the way that they approach UFO disclosure is similar in some sense, in the way that like we look at, and I'll make fun of them because I am one, white men, and like anytime that we feel like we are no longer in power, we panic, right? So like as a species, like, to acknowledge that there is an extraterrestrial presence is to acknowledge that we are not first on the pecking order anymore. And that scares us. So I guess my advice is quit being a bunch of white men and acknowledge the fact that that's okay.
I can't say that. I can. Because somebody will call me something.
No, that's fine. I'll criticize white men all day. So it's like, man, we have done enough damage. So, but I mean, it is similar in the mindset, I think, in terms of anytime that we are not in control or in power, then panic ensues. And I think that's a large part of disclosure, is the fact that I think there are some people who are in denial that this could possibly be real. And I think part of that is just based in fear. And the fact that like we have to rethink our place on the totem pole if we are to acknowledge that there are one or multiple species from all ends of the universe who are visiting, who clearly are way more advanced than we are, both at technology and consciousness level, and who have probably not blown themselves up with nuclear weapons. And so like, I think there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of self-reflection that needs to occur. If and hopefully this happens, we get further into the whole disclosure thing. So
yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I mean, it really is a lot of, your words, white dudes at these UFO, UAP conferences. There's little women talking, and if they are, they're channeling aliens. And, they're like a reincarnated Palladian, also named Mary Magdalene. So I just, like, there's not a lot of, so that's why I think but it's not even about the pecking order. It's more like, does somebody really need to control the narrative, or do we just know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got into this conversation with my youngest stepson. What constitutes being intelligent? And there's all sorts of ideas of what that is, and markers and tests you take and all this kind of stuff, right? But if, the idea, if a tree falls in the woods, did it happen type of thing. And so the difference between ancient people that we are so obsessed with, that somehow maybe they're in touch with aliens because they drew them on the cave walls and all this kind of stuff, and versus a modern person, man or woman, is that they already knew all of this stuff. That's why we're so blown away. Like, how do they build a Great Pyramid? How do they have all these alignments? They don't even have planes back then. How did that happen? What if they just knew and they trusted that? And it didn't have to do with one person having more power because they apparently knew versus the other one. And I think that's what the problem is that someone's trying to control the narrative so that they have power. But that's not how I think we're going to get to the next level. I think it's really going to be about, we've agreed that we all know. And that is going to be an evolutionary step, I think, in our modern day human species right now. That is something that will be very difficult to embrace from our logical minds and to know, because that is how all those anomalies that you see, the 7 wonders of the world, were built, because people just knew.
Yeah.
So what if we just knew? What would happen? It wouldn't be about some one person knowing or one person coming out in disclosure. So that's the total change in consciousness that will be the reveal, I think.
Yeah, it's just this idea of our obsession with certainty and being able to nail everything down. And I think that's, it's a very human characteristic. We want to be able to define things easily. And when we see something that we don't understand and we can't define, we default to fear, or it doesn't fit in our paradigm. And so I agree. I think to get to that next level, it's being okay with ambiguity and being able to be okay with not having all the answers, at least initially.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Are you familiar with this congressional hearing that's coming up?
Yes, I am.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you have any insight into, because as of last time I checked, no one really knows who's involved.
Yeah, I talked to Lou Elizondo. I think he's thinking about it. I mean, now his book is out, so he can talk openly, and he has been. Everyone's been reading his book, but so I'm not sure if he's dropping something that hasn't been said yet in his book. But he said he was thinking about it, because I was thinking about maybe going, but yeah, I don't know. I think again, if you can look through the lens of like these are all little pieces, and you really start to put them together and know what's true. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be revealed. I am excited though. I'm
They
excited.
keep talking it up, right? Like there's going to be some big reveal, and like I think so many people have like burnout in the field because like we've heard this so many times, then nothing revelatory happens,
Right.
But they seem to be hinting at the fact that there will be something released, in that the indication I got also was that it will be some new whistleblowers, perhaps, that we have not heard from yet. And I think that's, to me, what's most interesting is the people who are, at least maybe in some cases previously on the inside, who have this kind of firsthand knowledge of things. And as you said, all have like a little piece of the puzzle. And so I'm very curious to see who's involved in this and what sort of information they're going to put out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any insight on the exact who's going to come forward, but I'm excited for more evidence, new people coming forward, and really making this less of something beyond us, but part of us.
Yeah, it certainly does at least have that impact. I think with the first congressional hearing, in a lot of people's eyes, it kind of swung it from being sort of a niche, sort of like fringe topic, to being something that was more openly talked about, in the public eye. So I do think it had that sort of impact, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's all good.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a waste of time, but burnout it happens because we're looking for the one truth. And I don't think we're really going to get it the way we want it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Before I let you go, what are you currently working on? Where can people go to stay up on top of what you're up to? Is there going to be another season of UFO Witness? That'd be pretty awesome if it did.
God, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish. Ben and I both wish. I know Ben has been working on something to get both of us investigating another story, and that's all I can say. I can't say anything else, but I know he's working on that, which is great. And then if you go to www.hathorstudio.com, so that's HATHOR studio.com, you can find a couple of our movies that we have done, most recently Code 12, and we have a conference, and we've got a lot of really cool people diving into some crazy information. So if you're burnt out of the alien stuff and you want to know how are they coming here and why, we have a whole mapped out part of the world and the universe of if there were loopholes in other interdimensional travel. That's kind of what we talk about. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, I will put all those links in the show notes for sure. Thank you so much for coming on. Fascinating conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed having you on. So thank you so much.
It was so much fun. All right.
That wraps up my two-part conversation with Melissa Tittl. I hope you found it as thought-provoking and mind-bending as I did. The search for truth, especially in the realm of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, isn't just about evidence. It's about expanding the way we think, question, and perceive our place in the universe. If you enjoyed this episode or learned something new, please rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app, and share it with friends who are ready to explore the unknown. And as always, thanks for stepping into the void.